Hello, my name is Herbal Cano. Today, my teammates and I are going to talk about how was our life before the pandemic started. So we are going to talk about the things and situation we were used to, and we are also going to talk about how is our life now during the confinement. So we are going to emphasize and talk about the things that we are getting used to now. So, to start with, first we're going to talk about the things that we were used to before the pandemic started. So, the first one, we were used to taking the Route 17 bus to go to school. This is a principle at the only bus that gets to the UPY. So, this bus was always full, or almost all the time. Second thing, we were not used to having online classes. So, everyone knows that before the pandemic started, we were not used to use Microsoft Teams or that sort of thing, so it was kind of complicated to adapt to it. The last thing, we were used to having a nap on the bus. Between the UP students, it was pretty common to take a nap on the bus.
Before quarantine started in March here in Yucatan, I got used to waking up early in the morning at 5:50 a.m., having breakfast, changing my clothes to go to the UPY, and at 6:30 a.m., my dad drove me to the university. Now I wake up at 10 a.m. and figure out what I'm going to do next. But it has been 6 months since March and quarantine started, so I have adapted to some things. For example, I'm now getting used to doing exercise in the mornings, like at 10:30 a.m. I get used of making homework or study 1 or 2 hours at 1 p.m. and I get used to taking my dog for a walk for at least 1 hour at 8 p.m. after school and after being sick all day. Along that, I get used to eating less junk food and balancing what I eat. Because during my day, I don't do a lot of exercise besides doing exercise in the morning and going out with my dog at nights. I don't know how, but in March I was a little bit chubbier than I am now, so doing exercises almost daily had helped me lose weight, and I get used to eating fruit after having breakfast or lunch, like eating a banana or an apple.
Be present. So we are going to talk about how is our life now during the confinement. We are used to sleeping during class. Actually, this is a joke, but the last part wasn't. So the real statement will be we were used to sleeping during class, but now we are used to having online classes. Almost took us a year, but now we are used to. Second, we are used to working on Microsoft Teams. So after a whole quarter now we have already adapted to it. So now we can work pretty easily on this platform and we know how it works and all the pros, all the advantages and disadvantages that it have. The last one, we are still not used to having evening class because last quarter our schedules were during the morning and this change for some of us have been pretty complicated, but I think in the future we are going to get used to it.
We have to be honest about one thing, and that is that the impact of the pandemic was very abrupt, not only because we used to have more face-to-face social activity, but because the schedules used to force us to do them. After the pandemic, we became even more sedentary, if we used to be sedentary at all. Events are happening so fast that we don't have time to think about their extent. However, if we look at it from a software engineer's perspective, the home office doesn't change much from the things we used to do. And if I dare say this, it's because software development can be done almost anywhere, even if it didn't used to be done that way. To a certain extent, I think this can be seen as a lesson in courage that we had by force. And, well, if we didn't used to take negative experiences as teachings, I think this is the time.
My personal conclusion, I consider that the pandemic and confinement have already affected everyone, but on my personal case, I think I have already got used to this kind of life. Uh, and I kind of like it because thanks to the online class, I don't have to waste 3 hours of my time just going to the school because I used to take the bus. But I have to admit, I miss having a conversation face to face with my friends, going out with them. So I consider that I would like the pandemic to end, but if if it doesn't end for a while, I have no problem with it.
So, in conclusion, I get used to living all day in my house. At first, I was kind of sad because I couldn't hang out with my friends anymore, go to parties, or go out in general. But I've been respecting the quarantine and haven't went out of my house if it's not necessary. I hope the quarantine finishes within a year or two. We can go back to our lives before quarantine, but we are doing everything to prevent the disease to spread by staying home, sanitize everything, and be patient. And I hope and I trust that all my classmates in the UPY are doing the same.